From the rain, from the storm, and the lightning out at sea. In all the ways we run from thunder, 'cause the sound of the crack and the slap defies belief. It's what we seek, a pair of warm hands to hold, to grip our heads just like a vice. It's what we need, it's all we command. In a world where the stakes can surely feel this high, and I'm your beacon's light to keep you on your trail, and I'm your cave in the night. If trouble should be for your sails, come on, come on, come on, you'll always have shelter from the noise and from the flash. 'Cause I will be your cover, I will be your cover. Under me, take cover, I'll always be your cover. We're not of steel, we're not made of metal. If we fall without a catch, it'll be the end. 'Cause even big hearts can't always wrestle. Titanic, she went straight down by the head. And I'm your beacon's light to keep you on your trail, and I'm your cave in the night. If trouble should be for your sails, come on, come on, come on, you'll always have shelter from the noise and from the flash. 'Cause I will be your cover, and I will be your cover. Under me, take cover. I'm your beacon's light to keep you on your trail, and I'm your cave in the night. If trouble should be for yourself, come on, come on, come on, you always have shelter from the noise and from the flash. 'Cause I will be your cover, I will always be your cover. Yes, I'll always be your cover, I will always be your cover. Under me, take cover.
Hey, how's it going, everybody? I'm Ben from Universal Audio, and welcome to a very special finale of Tales from the Switch. If you guys have been following along at home over the last almost year now, we've been doing tons of Luna content, lots of office hours, lots of amazing artist interviews. But for me, one of the coolest series that we got to kick off was with my dear friend and mentor, Fab Dupont, as we chronicled him. First, we did a mixing project where he was mixing this record by Nazreen, but then we spent, 8-9 episodes recording, producing, mixing, doing an entire song production remotely. It's a really fascinating process, and literally every step along the way, you guys joined us on Tuesday mornings to hang out and throw bananas at Fab, or having Fab throwing bananas at us. But either way, today is a really special day because the Luna session for that song Everyman is now available to download inside the app. So you can pull down the session, open it up, check out the tracks, have your hand at mixing it. And to help us celebrate this, we decided, you know what, let's bring back the whole crew. Let's bring everybody back on and kind of geek out about the song. And if you guys have got questions at home, today's the day to ask them, because this is our actual finale for the track. So to help us kick this off today, we got Fab, we got Lewis, we got Will. The whole band's back together. How you guys doing?
Good, man. How are you?
Fab came prepared.
Yes.
I just happen to have these in the background as well, so...
Where's he?
Wait, I have a red one somewhere.
No,
All right. That's good too. That's good. All right. We're good.
This is like a banana-shaped MIDI cable. Like, that's as good as I got,
Yeah,
guys.
that's sold.
I'm sorry.
Sold.
I feel very
I'll take
underprepared.
That is the innovative spirit that has made Universal Audio what it is today.
Oh, I appreciate
All
that.
right.
Well, guys,
Nice.
nice to see you all again. Fab, Will,
Yeah.
Lewis, like this is it's been a while since we've had all you guys back on air, and hopefully everybody's doing well. It's a new year. How you guys feeling so far?
It doesn't feel like a new year, but yes, it is.
Feels like the same, right?
Yes, pretty much. Yes. It's great. Everything's great.
Awesome.
Will
Well,
is now a father.
congratulations,
Will
Will.
Will has
Yeah,
a baby.
thanks, guys. Yeah, I don't sleep anymore, and most producers probably know how that feels anyway, so...
Right?
Exactly.
more or less the same. And Lewis, I know you've been busy. Man, I see you every night on the Colbert Show. I'm assuming that's keeping you occupied and busy most of the time as well.
Dude, you'd be surprised. It's so amazing to me when people say, yeah, I see you on the show every night. Because the part that you see of me is actually the least of what now occupies my entire life. Like that's like the bumpers are just like, oh, I could actually play an instrument. Just like, you know what I mean?
Oh, that becomes the easy part, right?
Yeah. Producing like the music for the colds and the skits and the county bits. That's what occupies my life these days. But it's great teams to be a part of, and when my girls who are almost grown already become fully grown, I hope that they're able to see that I was a contributing factor to a dissenting voice to the madness in the world of the time.
That's all you can ask for, right? As long as you're against the madness.
Yeah,
Yes.
no, down with the madness.
Exactly. Lewis, if you get a chance, people are asking if you could turn your mic up a couple dB. I think.
Oh, I can. I could turn it up. I can move it closer. I wonder if I turn it. Oh, you know what? Because I turned it down when we were trying to fix the feedback issue before. So tell me how this sounds.
Oh, that sounds so good.
So
Yeah,
nice.
Is that a good level? Or should I bring it up or down or?
I'm appreciating the level. We'll see what the people in the chat say, but I think we're now on even levels here.
Nice. Sorry about that.
All good.
Thanks, everybody.
Well,
Like I
guys,
had some schmutz on my lip, and everyone was just like, "Hey, you got some schmutz on you."
well, the guys, I mean, this is as I mentioned in the intro, like this has been a long time coming. So we've been working on the song, for months, and it was really cool. Like Fab, this is a very unique situation, right? Of a song being recorded and live streamed the entire time while you guys were recording and producing.
Yeah, there were no hidden, no skeletons in no closets. The only thing that was not fully on camera is the wrap of the mix, like the final, because we ran out of time. So I finished the mix after. But the rest was on camera. Some of the writing sessions between Will and Lewis were offline. But I would say 90+% of everything that happens with the song happened on camera. It's pretty wild.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's crazy actually. And also for those of you who were not around, we recorded this. We haven't been in the same room since we started this, Lewis,
No.
right? Will, no, because you're in
No.
Europe. So there you go.
And
Go ahead.
yeah, we have not. No.
No, and the premise was we recorded this over Zoom. So once Lewis and Will wrote the song, then I remote controlled Lewis's Luna rig through the Zoom thingy that lets you control somebody else's computer.
Yeah.
No, it was TeamViewer.
TeamViewer.
Because the Zoom was a separate ordeal. You had to have the Zoom going over here and then the TeamViewer over here.
Over there.
Like,
I mean,
don't sell yourself short, Fab.
That is true. So this is what you call optimal conditions for music making. That's
Totally.
what,
yeah. With a couple of seconds of latency between every mouse move you make.
Just for
fun.
And also more latency listening to the stuff. So when we were doing drums and Lewis was playing drums, I would hear what he was playing late. And I would remote control it. And then also Lewis has fans. He loves fans. I'm one of his biggest fans, but he also actually has fans running in the house, which I couldn't tell because I couldn't hear the fans over the Zoom noise, right?
Yeah.
But I did find out once I got the session. That's when we found out. So in the end, I think this is awesome because this shows that you don't have to be in a $2,000 a day studio with $500,000 worth of gear to make a record. That sounds great, and that's ready to go to all the wherever streaming services and be released as is. We did it with the Nesrin mix, where the actual output of Luna is what's on Spotify. There's been no mastering.
Yeah.
It could do the exact same with this, and all this was recorded with suboptimal conditions.
I don't know what you mean there, but it was it's a really cool thing to, and everybody that's watching along at home, make sure if you don't already, go download Luna, and then inside Luna you'll hit the UA diamond at the top left and then go to the Discover tab, and in there you're going to find this session. It's at the top of the screen on the right hand side, so you guys can download the session files. It is fascinating to go in and listen. Like the drums, as an example, right? It's just 3 tracks. You guys kept it very simple, very minimal miking, and this is just Lewis's little kit. Like I think you're sitting at your kit right now, aren't you, Lewis? Like it's all in this one little area of your room.
Right now, there's an apple and almonds on the snare drum, but
Yes.
that's it.
Louis Louis has a 4-inch bass drum. It's the
Yeah.
smallest possible bass drum in the history of the bass drum universe.
But what's so cool to hear is
Yeah.
like when you isolate it, you're like wow, like that's an interesting kick drum sound. It doesn't have this full, and then when you hear it inside the mixed with the bass and the guitars and everything else that's going on in the production, you're like, oh, but it's just right. Like it's one of those magical sessions where when you hear it all together, you're like, this is it, and you isolate any of the elements, you're like, huh, that's it's kind of it feels slightly strange, but it's a perfect piece of the puzzle.
Yeah, it makes
Yeah.
it's that bass drum was the source of much soul searching for me.
I feel obliged to tell you that like, I probably should have mentioned this before, but I hadn't done nearly so many Colbert segments at the time. I probably actually use the actual sound of that kick drum. I'd say 30% of my professional output.
Most of the time, it's a
and the
trigger
re-
source.
It mostly is a trigger source. I mean, personally, I love it, but I'm not doing much of my own music right now. So, yeah.
So,
So
yeah.
God bless you, Fab.
Nice.
And the thing that's amazing in those conditions, and this is the part that I really dig on this, besides working with my friends, is that every single roadblock and limitation shapes the song. And so the trick is to shape it in a positive manner. If we had done this song at Flux, we probably would have used a 20 or a 22, and we would have had this big kind of like huge bass drum sound, and then it would have been done very differently. But because we did it this way, and that's the kit it had, it actually shaped the sound. And because the bottom kind of like sits that way, then the bass sits that way. So that's how it influenced the sound of the bass. Then it influenced the sound of the vocal on top of that, and influenced how we dealt with the stereo thing. And so everything influences everything. And the fact that I couldn't really hear the full dynamic because of the fantastic Zoom sound quality when we were tracking, all that stuff basically pushed the track in a certain direction, which is awesome. Because it gives it a certain tone and a certain vibe, and the limitations, like the reason why there are so few instruments, is partly because we had to do it on camera and we didn't want it to take 6 years. And so why not? So that we did it with a minimal thing.
Yeah.
And I think all of it is great. It's a great lesson in simplicity.
That is.
I mean, also the writing of it, like like Will's in the UK and I'm in Brooklyn. The limitation to that, I think, very much affected the, I mean, at least I can say for myself. I'm sure, like, if we were in person, I would have wasted a lot more time on a lot more pointless ideas, rabbit holes. And it's just like when you're just like, every minute matters, and then you only have like a few minutes, and you're sending things back and forth to try to like keep things going. It very much affects like the end result, and in positive way too, because then you get to stew over it and like think about it like in ways that like on your own, and then come back to the collective. And I mean, you can speak to that probably well more than me. You wrote probably like 90% of the lyrics.
Well, but it was still the same process though of starting the song together, where we had a conversation, because the lyrics really came from keywords that you said when we were talking about, well, just getting to know each other. And I think one of the words that you said was nemesis, and the conversation was kind of existential. It was about the struggle of finding happiness and trying to understand suffering. And so all of the words in the song came out of things that you said. So that part of the songwriting process didn't change at all. That first conversation, I think, is the most important one when you're co-writing together. What did change was the back and forth then that happens after that. So instead of having the opportunity to kind of tweak things as we went along, it's like, okay, well, maybe if I was Lewis, I might like this. Let's see how that goes. And fortunately, that worked out. But it's not an ideal writing situation. And I'm sure people watching this as well have tried to do Zoom sessions, Zoom writing sessions, and it feels a lot like hard work. It doesn't feel fun like doing a session in person does, where you get to walk away for half an hour, have a coffee, and talk about other stuff, or it just loses that fun element. So that's one thing that I feel like we missed from the writing process. We just didn't get to enjoy that time together so much as like, okay, we've really got to think.
Whoa.
Oh no!
Oh no! Come back!
The shadow of what it was such a profound thought that the internet was like, we gotta.
No,
we can't.
We need more bandwidth for that.
Exactly.
All right. Well, Will is gonna come back.
Yeah, he'll be back in here in a second.
Yes.
While we're waiting for Phil or for Will though, the one thing we haven't done yet is we haven't gotten a chance to really listen to the full final mix.
Let's do that.
So
that sounds like a really good idea. I have a computer right here with a session on it.
Oh my gosh!
Very pretty colors.
Right?
Yeah.
Pretty color.
Yeah.
And you said simple, but there's a lot of tracks, and we'll talk about all the stuff in the middle there as we get into the show.
Those are your idea. Those were your idea.
Yeah.
That wasn't my original idea, but it came out great. Should we listen to this?
Let's take a listen.
All right.
All right. So let's just play the whole song for resituating.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, Will.
You should keep that in the song.
Every man needs a nemesis, a desert that he cannot cross. To keep the soul in wonder, the belly must have hunger. He needs the vultures. And every man needs an Everest, a mountain that he cannot climb. To keep the head humble, the hands from trouble, you can't be comfortable. Happiness has left her footprints in the sand. Suffering will serve a purpose that I'm yet to understand. That's the curse of every man. Every man needs an element, a fear that he may lose control. To keep the heart sacred, escape the mazes, he must be vulnerable. Happiness has left her footprints in the sand. Suffering to serve a purpose that I'm yet to understand. That's the curse of every man. Even though I say I want the best, what I get is so much less. 'Cause my utmost ain't enough to call humanity. And every time I reach the top, my motivation all but stops. And I go right back to the source of my insanity. Happiness has left her footprints in the sand. Suffering, you serve a purpose that I'm yet to understand. That's the curse of every man. Happiness has left her footprints in the sand, Suffering, you serve a purpose that I'm yet to understand. That's the curse of every man. That's the curse of every man. That's the curse of every man.
guys. Absolutely bananas. The love in the chat right now is just it's massive. People are just like, this sounds so good. Like the quality, the way it all came together, the arrangement, like this is truly special, guys.
Wow.
Yeah, these are good guys. Yeah. You guys should consider a career, really.
Yeah, you should think about doing music full time, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
We thought about even doing it together.
Whoa.
That's right.
Whoa. Right. Well, and so
Very nice.
a lot of people, getting lots of great questions kind of rolling in already. But number one was like, can I get the session? Absolutely, yes. So if inside Luna, you just hit the diamond logo up top, go to the Discover page, and you'll see the thumbnail for the session that you can download it right inside the app. And that literally what Fab's showing you today, that is what you guys are going to be able to download.
Oh, I'm not logged in. I have to be logged in.
Yeah, it'll load here in a second.
Oh, there you go. Look.
Boom, right there.
Louis, you look so intense on that picture. It's awesome. You look like, you're like,
I mean, it was one of my more intense connected moments.
there you go. That's
That's what I
great.
love.
I love it.
Mike Stevens in the chat saying Maurice White would have loved it.
Hey!
Yes.
Right?
That's nice.
Come on, rest in peace, Maurice.
Yeah.
Man, it's such a cool arrangement, and it's the amount of soul that you put into this, Louis, is just, it's out of control, man. Like every time, like especially like when it gets to like the second verse, like all the little stuff you're doing on the hat and snare, like it's one of those things. It's exposed in the right way so that all the little tiny elements and details shine through so nicely.
Yeah, I mean, this is one thing that, like, in my very limited experience and career, that working with like all the UA stuff in general, it's like it brings a whole new life to the things that I've played like most of my life. Mm-hmm. Like to be able to like just to be able to capture things, and like the unison stuff is really just it's crazy. We like you said, Fab was at Flux in Manhattan, and I was here in Brooklyn, and he's running like the unison stuff like from there, and suddenly like all these things that like just usually exist in my head and on like crappy live YouTube videos from Montreux are like captured in a way that's like actually like, wow, you feel like the intention of it in a way that I've never felt before. It's really special.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, so Will, you were there at the beginning for the writing and kind of the genesis, and I think you contributed some of the background vocals as well. But obviously, with the string arrangement and all the layers and everything that it developed, how do you?
If I may, I just have to interject that like Will Knox on the chorus. That chorus does not happen if it's not for Will Knox's voice on the chorus. Like I get so bored. I mean, me personally, I get so bored with the sound of my voice already by that time, and it's just like, oh, the savior of like, oh, new timbre, oh, good timbre, oh, rich timbre.
Mm-hmm.
Like that chorus does not happen for me without Will Knox on it.
Without the blend, the Louis and Will blend.
Yeah.
That's kind of interesting, actually, in terms of like the writing process. How I think it used to be you would write a song with just a very basic kind of guitar piano arrangement. These days, more and more, you write the song as the same day you get a lot of the production down as well. So you might be more convinced by a melody if you can stack 100 vocals behind it, for example, than maybe you used to be. So I think it's interesting how songwriting is changing the more tools we have in production. It's just, maybe that's an interesting example of it.
Yeah, well, actually, in this particular case, I feel like the melody and everything holds together without having to be crutched by layering. I get so many songs where there's like the production is off the charts amazing, like with great tones, reverb throws, like stops, amazing, but they forgot to write a song, right? So you
Yeah.
get the thing, and then there's no song, like no song. Somebody's singing something. It's not a song. It's just like a stream of consciousness, pentatonic crap, right?
Uh-huh.
So, in this particular case, I think the work that was done up front about the song, that how the crafted song and the structure really, because it's so solid, then everything put on top. There could be 20 versions of this, but the soul of the song would be the same. And to me, that's what matters the most. And that's disconnected from the equipment. But being able to record your idea in real time without having to, this is an extreme case of remote, but without having to worry about too much gear. You just with a laptop and an Apollo desktop or whatever, you just plug your microphone in and you're recording right away. And I think that's what Lewis was mentioning, is like we were able to capture world-class level stuff in suboptimal conditions because the gear is not in the way, and that's a beauty. It's very difficult to refrain from using everything though, because it sounds fun. But yeah, so that's the thing.
Well, it's
If
interesting
we
too.
had been, if we had been in the same room, the three of us, you guys probably would have written that song in one sitting with a little tweaks the day after, and then Louis and myself could have recorded this in a day and mixed it the day after. Maybe less than a day. We probably would have gone out for dinner.
Oh wait, so you wouldn't have spent 9 months working on it if you were in the same room together? That's so weird. Funny how
Yeah.
that works.
Yeah, well, yeah, we'll see. Maybe I'm dreaming. We'll see. We'll see how long it takes. We'll see how long it takes to make the next song, Louis. Maybe it won't take 2 days. We don't know.
Well,
Yeah.
we'll see.
So-
It'll be the vaccine version.
Exactly.
There you go.
Yeah. Well, so what's really cool is, man, some of the stuff that you guys used inside the Luna session is really fascinating, and of course, I've seen a few people here asking, it'd be cool if they could see the evolution of the song. You totally can. So there's it should be up by now. There should be a blog post up on uaudio.com/blog that links you to be able to get the download the session. But most importantly, it has all of the videos in the series that we did together. So this way you guys can actually see the song from literally the I think it was like the day or two after you guys wrote the tune and it came on for the end of the last show where we just listened to the quick little demo you guys made, to recording the drums, bass, guitar, vocals. Like, it's so funny. It's kind of a trip to go back and rewatch those, and you see, you see the process all along the way, but you also see how each one of these decisions informed the next thing that brought to the next thing that kind of built up what you guys just heard. But what's super dope about the session, like I checked this out last night. So say on the vocal track, if you assign the input of Lewis's final vocal track and record input on it, it brings back the original vocal chain that you guys used when tracking it. So you can see the settings that were used in tracking of the song after the fact. So it was like a 1084 and an LA2A. It reminded me of, like, Fab, I remember some of the things you had to keep in mind since you're doing this remotely is you wanted to capture a good sound, but you also wanted to play it slightly safe because you couldn't 100% trust what you were hearing. So it was interesting seeing you make decisions in that frame of mind with that practicality, while also still, knowing these tools kind of like the back of your hand, right? You know a Neve is going to sound like a Neve. You know if the LA2A is just doing a thing every once in a while, you're going to be safe and you'll enjoy it when you get down to the mixing process.
Yeah, and but the thing is that is the part that makes it the reliability of the system allows you to do things like this, and actually, very honestly, it's the same when I'm in the room. If we were here with Louis in the room, he would be here. I would be recording on headphones, and so that's not the optimal way to judge the tone. And so usually I know the mic, and I know what a 1084 sounds like, and I know what an LA2 sounds like, and I know if the LA2 is not doing this, I should be fine, you know.
Yeah.
And then I deal with it later, you know, because I don't want to be distracted by the gear. I want to focus on, you know, how does it feel. And you know, it's very difficult to keep a fresh connection to the song. Like after you hear a song 7 million times, even in the course of a recording session, when you listen to it for 2 hours, how do you know if that seventh take feels good? Is your heart still open to what's going on musically? It's not easy. You have sometimes to remind yourself to keep your heart open to what's going on musically, because if not, what takes over is, well, is it even? Is there? Did he say the right words? Is it in pitch? And those things don't really matter, because all that's fixable. What's not fixable is does it touch you, right? And so the least amount of noise, and when I mean noise, the least amount of distraction, the better it is for the creative process. And so that's why I love working with Luna, and I love working with U80 stuff, because it's just not in the way, and it's incredibly reliable, both in, you know, the way it works, but also in the way it sounds.
Yeah.
So you're able to just build a library of things that you know are working, and they will be working again next time, and then you can focus on what matters. Is like, is this working for me? You know, musically, emotionally.
Yeah.
And despite the whole crap of Zoom and TeamViewer, we actually were able to keep that. And the thing is, that's because for those of you who were not watching the series, Louis, besides a few background vocals, Louis plays and sings everything: the drums, the bass, the guitar, the keyboards too, I think, and then the vocals, and then Will layered the super crucial ooze on the chorus, and some really cool backgrounds at the end. And so Louis has the capacity to do all that stuff at top level, consistently all the time.
Yeah.
So that makes my life easy. But there were still a lot of choices to decide. Like, is this take cool? Is this word really the right word? We replaced one word weeks later, just one word in the second verse weeks later, because I felt it's not as classy as the rest, you know? And so what really matters to keep what? The Matrix.
What? What?
The Matrix. It's the key is to keep a very fresh perspective, and it's the same for performance. It's the same for production, and it's the same for mixing. Does it feel right? Is it? It's all correct. Like, you can't. After a while, everything's correct. You know what I mean? But does it feel good based on what your intention is? And so that I think that's the joy of that series, as you can see that arc of things.
Yeah.
And you can see, you know, the discussions of, are you sure you like that? You know, and there's a few of those during the series, and it's cool. You know, I think that's the really interesting stuff, beyond the amazing geekery of, you know, pulling off a cool track, not being in the same room.
I mean, I was just gonna say the exact same thing of, like, the technicality of everything fades away very fast, right? Like, it was essentially like, get a chain going, sounding good, and then you could sense the shift in you guys as you're doing it, of, like, you're no longer thinking about what tools you're using or pressure, like that kind of faded away, and then you could see the two of you thinking musically, and, like, Fab, you know, I know when you close your eyes and, like, you're really concentrating and trying to evaluate, right? Like, how's this feeling to me? How's it going to feel to an audience later on? And then being able to offer feedback. I remember just so many people commenting throughout the series of just how they loved seeing the producer artist interaction between the two of you, and it was no filter. It was like, you guys were here to make a song together, so there was this unfiltered interaction between the two of you, and what that feedback process is like, what you guys are thinking about and considering, and trying to push each other to you know, deliver the best sounding record you can, you know, even given the circumstances that just seemed like it faded away into the background, and we were getting to see real life how a record gets made, and what that process is like, human to human.
I mean, this was no different from an average session. for any other session. There's no such thing as an average session, really, from any other session in this process, besides the distance, which we should probably get used to, because it seems to me that there's a lot of those distance sessions happening more and more. Not because people realize that it's possible to do this.
Yeah.
And so we're doing it. It's not my first choice, but it's doable.
So yeah, before we jump back over into geeking out, because there's a few things inside the session I really want to highlight. For people, as you mentioned, this is kind of a common condition now that all of us are dealing with, of remote collaboration. Either through this project or through other projects you guys are working on. Do you have any tips or suggestions for people that are also doing remote collaborations, whether they're team viewing or just writing sessions together? What's been some stuff that you guys have picked up throughout this pandemic as helpful tips?
I think
If
Louis
you
is going to
work
answer that.
over-
That's his life.
That is my entire life. If you work remotely on Zoom, it's been a super helpful tool for me to have had to go down the rabbit hole and figure out that Zoom has a thing where if you're sending it any more than if it sees any more than two outputs, it automatically sums it into a cruddy mono usually distorted signal.
Yeah.
And it took me months to realize that. But once I did and figured out the loopback workaround, it's been a super game changer. And it's not super readily found on the internet. So hopefully that's helpful to somebody.
Yeah. Being able to hear what's going on is kind of crucial, I bet.
Yeah. Loopback is this piece of software that lets you route any input to any output on your Mac. So we're using it right now for you guys to be able to hear me and to hear the output of Luna. So basically, think of it as a sub mixer at the core audio level of your Mac. I'm sure they have something similar on Windows. And so when some pieces of software, like in film and video and around, audio is always the last thing, right? They have a $70 million budget for a movie, and they have $8.50 for the music in 3 minutes to pull it together, right? So it's the same for online stuff. The guys at Zoom, they added audio because they realized that if there was no audio to Zoom, it would be like a surveillance camera, It's like, oh, we probably should have some sound to this. Oh yeah, here, boom, sound. So the loopback thing is crucial to being able to do that. That's a very, very good. Also, Louis, what you do is you have a separate iPad for you, so that you have two Zooms basically. Sometimes you log in from two places.
Yeah, sometimes I'll do a FaceTime just to communicate with like my collaborator, which is often like co-producer with Bobby or segment producer on the show, and then I leave the Zoom specifically for sending audio back and forth. Or I'll do audio movers, and then we'll FaceTime for the to get the human connection and collaborate in almost real time, with the audio movers delay. Two devices is definitely preferable. It helps a lot with like being able to have like. I mean, anytime you're dealing with just one, you're going to sacrifice one or the other, like the human connection or the audio quality. But being able to have like an iPad or even a cheap laptop or something to like Skype on or something, and relegate the human connection to that, and isolate the audio connection to, your Zoom or your recording setup, so that you can send quality, representable audio to the person you're collaborating with. It makes a big difference.
It's
Huge
night and
difference.
day. Yeah. How about you, Will? Has there been any in the sessions that you've been doing anything that's kind of really helped you get over the distance barriers?
Yeah, I think so. Actually, maybe it just enhances like things that you would normally do in a session. But I think there's a patience aspect because there's a delay in sound.
Mm-hmm.
You can't both play at the same time. So that means that someone's going to play and someone's going to have to listen. And so maybe it encourages you both or you all to kind of find a way to listen to one person who's speaking at that one moment. So maybe that's the best lesson of all these distance co-writes. I've also found that starting with an idea is really helpful, kind of for that same reason, because there's no way you can jam. Someone can't play guitar while someone's singing on top of it. Someone has to do almost everything at the same time to say, do you like this idea or not? And from that respect, I find like working on like a big production and singing on top of it, it's very hard to do. But if you can kind of just play guitar and sing a basic melody and get feedback on it and get that patience, that kind of relationship where someone's listening to what you're playing, good things can happen. But that's why it feels a bit like harder work than just like fun kind of jamming, those kind of sessions that we're all used to.
I love that point.
Spoken like a true co-parent.
You learn to listen. That's you're totally right, Will. It totally does change the dynamic of, you know, it's a little bit less chaotic in a sense, but you're right. You have to come more prepared, and then you have to be a little bit more patient and be willing to listen and then speak, and, you know, hold your thoughts and then be able to bring them back out. Yeah, that's really fascinating, guys. Well, Faba, you know, we've been here waxing poetic about the whole series, about the process of doing this, but everyone already recognizes this in the chat. I just want to recognize it here on air as well, man. This mix is amazing. Like this, it's absolute. It's a really fun mix, dude. Like it's so cool. It's so cool to hear, and like the fact that now, like, you know, all of us at home can go through and turn on and off, and kind of, you did so much with so little and made it sound so big but so focused. It's kind of that, it's this weird like Goldilocks sweet spot of a lot of things. But what's really cool is to hear the impact that each one of these tools have. Like there's a lot of summing, there's a lot of tape elements. You know, if you pull out the API bus compressor at the very end, the whole the character of the entire thing changes. So you know, let me share your screen here, and I'd love you to kind of some of your favorite highlights inside the session that you think people should be investigating as they're opening up on their rigs. Would be great.
Yes. So that's a fun thing to do. So let me connect on the first verse. Great. So to me, the number one challenge on this was to, and no disrespect to your house, Louis, I love it there, but to remove the sound of Louis's house. Because the sound of it's a New York apartment, and so it has a sound. It's got the sound of walls, and I wanted to create a more dreamy space. And so one interesting thing to do is if you listen to the track like this.
Every man needs a nemesis, a desert that he cannot cross.
And then you listen to the same thing, but you mute the reverbs.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of cool. Check it out.
Every man needs a nemesis, a desert that he cannot cross.
So there's a certain kind of like documentary quality to this, because it's like everything is very immediate, right? So it's not super dreamy, but with the reverb. So I'll play again without the reverbs.
Every man needs a nemesis, a desert that he cannot cross.
And then with.
Every man needs a nemesis, a desert that he cannot cross.
There's all this height and all this depth coming to it, and most of that was done with and maybe slightly unconventional use of Ocean Way Studios.
Unconventional how?
Well, this is kind of designed to be put on the track more than a sand effect, you know, and so I'm using it in remake mode, but on a sand, because gotcha. I just like the tone of it. Another thing I do here, and you should check that out. Another thing I do.
Side note, I do that for all of my drums here now.
You use that exact chain, right?
It
exact
works.
chain. I send it to like Yeah.
The Ocean
Dude,
Way. Yeah, it's great. Yeah,
It's
I love that thing.
Yeah, that was
Yeah.
one of the biggest shockers for me when I sold the drums and it didn't have Ocean Way on it. I was like, all right, yeah, that sounds like a tiny apartment drums. And then you add Ocean Way, you're like, oh yeah, nope, that's the mix. That's the blend I knew to love.
We can try that actually. So if I take this, let me see where the sands are. I did so much stuff here. So if we take just the drums, okay, and then I'm gonna add the reverbs. So the Ocean Way. I mean, there's some other stuff too, but and I used a little bit also this thing called sauce. And sauce is it's something I've been doing recently. Is the 140 on a pretty short setting, not super short, but like a minute, second and a half. And it's really nice. So
Which
and the two
which
of
plate
them.
was that? Was that C or B?
No, that's B. You know, I have
B.
this weird like I don't really dig C. And all my friends whom I respect, that's what they use. They use C. And I feel it makes me feel like a lesser man. I feel like maybe there's something they know I don't.
No judgment, Fab. No one's gonna judge you for your plate choice.
And then I go and I put C on because you know whomever I love dearly uses it. And I put it on and I listen to the music. I said, "Ugh, this sounds bad." And then I put B. I said, "Yeah, this is right." So you know, same thing happened with Ocean Way. I remember when Will Shanks, fantastic UA plugin wizard, sent me Ocean Way. I wrote back to him and said, "This is a gimmick. I hate this thing. Bleh, yuck. I'm never gonna use this. Why don't you guys make real plugins?" And then about I don't know, maybe a session came with it on or something. And now I use like at least 5 per session minimum.
Yeah,
Right?
exactly.
It's my space thing, and because I treated it like a reverb, but it's not really. It's not a reverb. I just didn't get it because I was young and stupid then. I've grown tremendously. So Ocean Way is dope, and it's really interesting. If now that you have this session, to be able to go through and see how this is achieved, because that's the stuff that's hard to do.
Yeah.
You know, making sure the bass drum sounds good, whatever. You mentioned the API. The API is dope. Check it out. So this is I'm going to turn the API on and off. Actually, I should do it here. I'm going to turn the API on and off while I play the track so you can hear the difference. So this is just a mixed bus compressor, just a little bit of compression to keep things tight. And you'll notice that I don't compress that much.
Every man needs a nemesis, a desert that he cannot cross. To keep the soul in wonder, the belly must have
Hold on, let me play it again.
hunger. He needs the vultures. And every man needs an Everest.
So I'm using 1 dB of compression, right? Which
Yeah.
is these days basically nothing, but it basically changes the way that everything relates to each other. And I'll play again the same section so you can really tell the difference. Listen to the bass drum and the vocal relationship, and listen to the room relationship, like between the vocal and the room, and also the tail of the guitars, which is the guitars are really very dry, so I put the sauce on them. And check it out. So this is with.
Every man needs a nemesis, a desert that he cannot cross.
With that.
Every man needs a nemesis, a desert that he cannot cross.
And there's a little bit of gain here. Maybe I should do the same test without the gain. Let me do the same test without the gain so you can really hear.
That's actually I was going to ask you. Like I felt like maybe it was a too basic of a question, but like, how do you like when you're first like figuring like which compressor is right to put on like on the mix bus? Like, do you get level? Do you gain? Gain level match?
Always. In this case, I didn't level match because I'm hitting another plugin alto and I wanted to push it a little bit. But it was probably level match at one point, and then I just backed up compression and I forgot to level match. I spent a ridiculous amount of time level matching because I don't like to lie to myself.
Before you even commit to it.
Well, no, yeah, I mean, basically, to pass judgment on what something does, you got to level match. Otherwise, you're just kidding yourself, which could be fine. Sometimes it's nice, you know. People take drugs, for example, because they want to feel a different way. Just an example. So if you don't like your track, you could put a compressor on it or a limiter on it, jack up the gain, and all of a sudden, life is great. You know, and that works for some people. It doesn't work for me. For me, what I care about is knowing that I'm actually doing something of value for the music, and in this particular case, things felt. By the way, this song made me fall in love with the 2500. I love it so much that I actually went and bought a hardware one. Also,
you're doing it backwards.
Yeah, I know. I discovered it with the plugin. Rediscovered it with the plugin. This thing was sitting in my rack. This one 2500 was sitting in my rack for my studio mate, Damon Whitmore. Had it. And he was like, you should really try this. And I'm like, no, I don't care. No. And then he moved out, right? And then we do this project, and somebody sent me a session with a 2500 on it, and I dug it. And I was like, hey, why don't I try it on this, right? And I put a 2500 on, and I loved it so much that I called Damon and said, hey, can I buy your 2500 off you? And he said yes. So the 2500 is back in the rack, and now, because now I'm able to work either with summing or in the box using the exact same 2-bus compressor. Or sometimes I would do a mix here at Flux, use summing, use a 2500, and then I'm in LA or in Paris, and somebody wants to recall. I just open the same session and I recall it with a UAD plugin. So it's really nice. So yeah, this 2500 is dope. It's not. It takes a second to get used to, but it's really good. Let me play it. Let's try and level match this stuff.
Every man needs a nemesis.
My computer doesn't really like all this stuff running at the same time.
Every man needs a nemesis. Every man needs a nemesis.
So a tiny bit less gain on the thing, and then we can listen. So this is with.
Every man needs a nemesis. A desert that he cannot cross.
Hear how everything is like really tight, especially when the bass drum hits. They kind of feel contained, and then without.
Yeah.
Every man needs a nemesis. A desert that he cannot cross.
Also, here's the thing that's interesting. So every man needs a man. It says, bumped, boom, boom. Listen to that double bass drum, the second set of double bass drums. If you listen very carefully, you notice that without the compressor, they bunch up a little bit. There's a little bit of like a 90, kind of like 90 hertz, kind of like, kind of yucky, a little vulgar sounding thing. But with the 2500, not at all, because they emulated the whole circuit, and it actually changes the tone, not because of the compression, but because of the tone of the box.
Yeah.
So this is without.
Every man needs a nemesis. A desert that he cannot cross.
Heard that? And now with.
Every man needs a nemesis. A desert that he cannot cross.
It just feels like, it comes from your throat to your chest, and it just goes, it's just ample. I love this thing. This thing's off the charts, amazing.
I mean, that was one of the key things I learned from you, Fab. It was like compressors are just as much of an EQ move as they are a level move. Like, it's not. Yep. You're not just. Don't just look at the meter and be like, "Oh, this is what I'm doing to my mix." It's like, no. It's doing stuff all around it. It's changing your relationship between things, as well as the overall tone and power of a mix, all in one. You guys are looking at the meter here, right? Like it's barely moving. It doesn't have to. It doesn't have to be causing crazy amounts of motion to have a massive impact on the tone.
because every box has a circuitry to achieve what it's supposed to achieve, and they have the limitations of the hardware, and this is imitating the hardware. Actually, that was told to me by no other than Chris Muth, who was on the ATR 102 segment.
Mm-hmm.
He was a part owner of Dangerous Music, which was what I got it from them. I'm their descendant basically, and he told me when he came in, he said, Fab, you gotta have to realize that it's probably smarter to use compressors as EQs and EQs as compressors. And I looked at him and I said, yeah, and you're the Queen of England and I'm the Beatles. Let's move on, And then years later I was like, of course Chris was right, because Chris is always right about this stuff. So every when you put an LA2A on a bass, like for example, you could see it here. Check it out. On the mix bus, I have a Pultec Pro Legacy. That's because it's my baby, my habit. I love it. I use it on everything. As you can see,
Same.
there's like 0.3 dBs at 20 hertz. Clearly not going to change the course of modern music, right? But everything else is zero. Everything else is flat. I have a little bit of a cut at 200 on the vocal, on the whole mix. The reason for that is I love the sound of the box. Sometimes I have the Pultec on and it doesn't do anything. There's no gain because of the transformers and the emulation of the circuit. If you put an LA2A on a bass, even without compression, it's going to change the tone of the bass because of the transformers. Same with the 1176. You don't have to hit an 1176. Like, for example, the Blue Stripe thing has that distortion thing that's really cool. It does on vocals. I think they actually do that here. Let me see.
Yeah, I think he had the blue stripe on his vocal.
Yeah, that's to bring out a little bit of that shine that the 1176 Blue Stripe has. It's not a desirable thing because you know what? This was a Rev A, and then Bill Putnam went back and made a better one that was cleaner. So clearly he didn't like it, right?
Yeah.
Otherwise, why revise it? You don't revise the perfect recipe. So in the original creator's mind, this was not a good thing, but it had a tone, and that tone is now highly desirable because we have all very, very clean converters and very clean microphones and no tape. So a little bit of harmonic distortion is nice, and this gives it to you in spades. And so a lot of compressors, because of the way the circuits are designed, have a tone built into them. And so I find it entertaining to use that. Plus, you always got to do what Chris Muse says.
Totally.
So yeah.
Well, another for me, a big shocker inside the session is the tape and the summing. The way that those, again, when they're on there, like it's not like you're gonna notice, oh man, this clearly sounds like it's processed through tape or summing. But it's one of those things that, like, when you take it away, you're like, whoa, where'd the song go? Like, what happened? It totally changes the character of it.
Everything falls apart. Yeah, and that's because I mixed into the thing, right? So when you'll see this probably if you have the patience to watch the mixing video, which shows about 80% of what was done here. I actually pushed into the tape to get that softened transit for the same reason I just discussed. Everything is recorded with like super top quality equipment, and we get no help. It's a picture. It's like the difference between a film picture and an iPhone picture, right?
Yeah.
There's a reason why they invented all those filters. And so I used the Neve summing and here the API summing on the mix bus and the ATR 102, and I think I used the 800 on somewhere. There you go. As filters, basically, you can really think of it as an Instagram filter.
Well, like notice on the string bus there, you're running at 3.75 on a 1/4-inch 250 machine. So you're running
that may be slightly over the top, yeah.
Super slow, but it gave it that. I think what you're going for. You can also see on the Neve summing, right? You've got the headroom cranked, so that way you're giving the strings as much vintage saturation and color as you possibly can.
It's all about the saturation and transformer emulation. Yes, yeah. I don't know if and these things, everybody now these days it's all about instant gratification and absolute huge night and day. But let's check out the impact. Let me go a little later where it gets a little more dynamic. this is without either. It's got all the appeal of a dead horse. All right, so you can turn the Neve summing back on and then the ATR back on. It sounds like this. It's got this, it's not compressed. It's just, that's this thing, this kind of together thing. And then I have a 2500 on it too, because when I fall in love, it is for everything. So, and this is not a lot going on. More than usual. So I did level match here. So this is without. With. So it gives this kind of like even thing. This is actually being used as a real compressor right now, not as a tone box. It's really cool,
man. It's and then the ATR that you have on the master bus as well was another one where like the minute I took it off, it was like there went the mix.
Yeah, it's getting kind of slammed. This is the whole mix. Let me just find a spot where it's pocket.
Hey Fab, in your Luna window, right below your big meter, do you mind hitting the control room button? They'll just push the main fader a little bit to the left so that way we can see it here on the call. Yeah, the one that you had up, control room. This will so now when you go back to the mixer window, we'll be able to see the chain on your main fader.
Wow. Let me see.
There we go. Now the folks can see that. And of course, you guys at home, the whole point of this exercise is that you guys can go download the session and play with this stuff yourself.
Yeah.
Which is the really cool thing to be able to get hands on, be able to, a lot of stuff that we're talking about here, we're just we're skimming across the top of some of the really cool things inside the session. But you guys can get in there, you can hear, and this is something that I highly encourage you all to do. You want to train your ears and start really understanding like the difference between Neve and API summing. Like, why would Fab use Neve on the sends, but then on his main use the API? And going back and forth between the two, you start kind of picking up the nuances that each one has to offer. And same for the ATR 102 tape. Just cycle through the different tape formulas. Listen, like each one of those tapes offers a touch of different tone, a different character to it. And the more that you play with this, the more that you start comprehending and building up this database in your mind of, oh, this one does that sound, so that when you're doing your mixes, you're gonna be able to go back and be like, oh yeah, I wanted that like slightly more classic thing. How did Fab do that? Oh, tape speed, tape formula. Let me try these combos out, and it's a great. These are the whole reason why we do these sessions is as learning tools for you guys to get in there and be able to experiment and not have to worry about. You don't have to worry about playing all the instruments and performing. Lewis took care of that for you guys. So you got incredible source tracks to be building from, and you've got an incredible mix built here by Fab. You've got this awesome starting point that now you guys can go in there and just absorb and try different things out. Try the plugins that you own versus ones that you don't own, and it's a really fun. I personally do this as well, man. Like I'm in these sessions. I have to be really careful beforehand because I'm helping prep them before they go get downloaded, so I can't go too hog wild until they're officially released because I don't want you guys don't want to accidentally mess up Fab's mix. But that's the key to this whole thing is downloading, experimenting, and absorbing for yourself what these differences make.
Especially with those the extensions, because there is no way in hell you're gonna patch a whole mix through a Neve or through an API fast enough to be able to really compare the difference between the two, provided you happen to have a classic Neve and a classic API in your studio, which if you do, give me a call. We should talk. So this is an amazing learning tool to be able to have this very accurate recreations. And also they allow you to do crazy things. Like I'm a big fan of 250 tape. I just love the way Scotch 250 sounds. I always did. Even though I only learned about Scotch 250, a few years ago, then I realized again through Chris, who knows everything about everything. He said, yeah, that record was done on 250, and he's usually right. So I like that, but it's really great for me to be able to just click a button right here and then change to 456 900 GP9 and then use it as a filter, right? So I like the sound of 250 and what it does to records, but maybe for this particular thing, I need something that sounds a different way, and I can do that. Also, something that's really great to look into is the speed. The speed makes a huge difference to the tone of these plugins. That's why on the strings I use really slow speed, 7.5. No, or was it 3.75 quarter inch? So I was definitely looking for a lo-fi kind of vibe, right? I wanted things to sound like they were recorded lo-fi, and they were not recorded lo-fi. They were the super hi-fi Spitfire things. So I went heavy on that, heavier than I would in general. The other thing you have to know about these insert effects, the tape, is that there's more to it than it seems. You can also decide how hard you hit the tape. That is super crucial.
Yeah.
You can change. They have a really great system that lets you hit it harder but pad the output, so you stay constant gain, and so you can really saturate something in a very elegant manner, and that's really hard to do in analog. Right? And just this one plugin, think about it. You got 4 different speeds, 3 different speeds, 4 different speeds, 3 different head size, 4 different kinds of tapes. And then you can calibrate it differently too. It's crazy how deep it is.
Right, the fact that you can open up the top and get in there and change the bias, change the repro EQs.
It's totally wild, and it's a wonderful tool. It's really great. This is what it does on the whole mix. I don't remember how drastic this is going to be, but let's see. With maybe the whole mix. I think I heard somebody say the whole mix. Hold on one second.
Somebody said something about whole mix.
Yeah, whole mix. Yeah.
Happiness has left her footprints in the sand. Suffering serve a purpose that I'm yet to understand. That's the curse of every man.
Basically, everything below the belt gets cut off, right?
Right.
So,
dude, the vocal tone alone, just like it doesn't sound like Lewis anymore when you take it off.
Dude, it was like you were like a puppet show, and then you just like took away the curtain.
Yeah.
It was hired as a puppeteer.
This plugin is really great because the way, especially placed where it is in the gain stage, it keeps you honest. You know, everybody's recording and mixing so loud, and there's a place for that. But for something like this, it's unnecessary. And having this and the API here allows you to really function have a playground with boundaries, and that you can push against, and that they push back, and that gives that tone, you know. And you just heard it, like it just is night and day because the plugin is no longer pushing it. So you have the tone of the plugin, but you have the tone of the whole mix pushing the plugin a little, and then the plugin pushing back. Not just the EQ and stuff. There's a real dynamic relationship there. I love it. This is great.
Well, and you mentioned an important fact, right? Is that you mixed into these tools, right? So like from the beginning of your mix process, it's like if you were in a real studio, you don't change your mind halfway through your mix to be like, now I want to run this through the console, because it totally throws off everything. All the work you've done previously can be it's all shaped through what's happening here on the main fader. So choosing a tool, and even if it is wrong, right? Even if you change your mind later, you're like, I want to try a different tape formula. You've at least been kind of gain staging and pushing into these tools with the right headroom in mind, so that when you change tape, now you're just getting the effect of the tape type changing, not overall removing the machine from the signal.
It's also a habit I got early on when and because I do a lot of summing, you know, and I interact with analog devices a lot these days, you know. So, for example, I just almost finished a Michelle Willis record, and that traveled. That Louis plays drums on the Michelle Willis record and sings too. that record's traveled. I mean, it was on my laptop. We went into the Dangerous Room. We tracked all the basics with Lewis, Cutler, and Michel playing live. Then we did organs. Then we came here. We did synth overdub. I have a couple synths here. So we did synth overdubs. Then we went to California. I recorded Michael McDonald in another studio, right? And I broke it down onto a console. And we went in the basement. We recorded Crosby singing vocals. Completely different environment. So I would switch between digital and analog all the time. You know, you do a session there, you do another session. There's one song called How Come. We recorded the drums 3 times. 4 times. An insane
it?
amount of times. Yeah. And so
I felt like it was at least 4.
4 times, yeah. Yeah. So because we were playing with the arrangement, trying to find the optimum moment. And you know what, Louis, though? The shuffle at the end is the first take of the first session. Everything else is like the first take of the first session.
I can see that.
Anyway, yeah. So I, because I have to switch formats, analog to digital, I keep everything at analog levels. Mm-hmm. And so that allows you to take this session and go lay it out on a console and not distort, and then come back into digital and then function. And so having these extensions, the summing and the tape extension, you can't slam a 102 with, you know, at -4 LUFS. It will just scream at you, you know? And so you have to be like a civilized human being. And then if you want to make yourself silly, then you can put a limiter at the end, jack it up there. But at least your whole chain is clean. And that allows you to really hear what these boxes are supposed to do. And if you want to abuse them, you can. Like that's what I'm doing on the strings. I'm going 1/4 inch, 375, 250, and I'm slamming it, and I'm slamming the 2500 too, and that gives a certain tone. Yeah. You know, if there's Vance Powell, who's a fantastic producer, engineer, good friend of ours. He uses the 800 as a distortion box. This plugin, the Studio 800. Mm-hmm. It just slams it so hard that the first beat of the first thing that goes into it goes. You know, and it loves that sound. It's great, and you can actually do that here, just pushing the saturation here. He pushes it to the next level, but basically, if you follow the rules, the basic rules of gain staging, then he puts you in a position that you're able to break it in a positive manner and help you get really great, interesting tones. Mm-hmm. And that's why I love these extensions, because they're going to force, because they sound so good and people are going to want to use them, they look pretty too, they're going to force a new generation of people who never had to deal with analog gain staging to understand how it works. Yeah. And that's going to put dynamics back in music. It's nice.
And the biggest, for everyone that's following along at home too, like the biggest thing for me that helps maintain that gain staging is having VU meters right there, like being able to see, because if you guys are used to seeing metering in other DAWs, even like the meters at the bottom in the mixer of Luna, those are all peak meters. So those are showing as fast and instantly what the digital level of your signal is. That is different than what the VU meters are showing you, which is it's a slightly slower response, and it's also in a different spot, like that sweet spot, that 0 dB. 0 dB VU is kind of like, it's where all of the UAD plugins, the summing, the tape, they're all calibrated. That's their sweet spot. That's where they love to live. That's in the analog world. That's where you would spend a lot of time gain staging and tweaking and dialing in your machines so they all sounded good together at 0 dB VU, which is oftentimes 18 or 20 dB away from 0 dB FS, which is the top of that peak meter. So it's that headroom, it's that distance between the two, and the fact that now that you're operating at the 0 dB VU, you've got plenty of room to go above, you've got room to go below, but when you're operating here, you can, as Fab's mentioning, like you can be precise and you can be very accurate in what you're choosing to do with the summing, with the tape machines, in terms of like how hard are you going to drive them to either get a more positive saturation and color or less, and being able to see that accurately is the key to being able to do this effectively.
And if you're slamming something on purpose because that's what you're looking for, great.
Yeah, totally.
That's cool. But I've seen firsthand here people who come to Flux, and we have a lot of gear, and maybe we have real Pultex over there in the dangerous room, and I see people come in and they're like, "Oh, I'm going to warm up my bass," right? So they have this like plug-in, they have like Trillion or a Moog or whatever, right? And it's on stun,
Yeah.
right? It literally could melt plastic, and then then they run it through the Pultec, and they don't understand why it doesn't sound better. It's a Pultec. It's got to sound better, right? It's the right color. It's got the right buttons. I don't understand why it doesn't sound better. I'm adding bottom and there's nothing coming. It's like the Pultec is like, I can't think. There's too much level. Like literally, like you send -3, -4 to. That's not what they were designed to. They were designed for line level 600 ohm. Like +4 is already on the edge. You know, it's loud, and so you have. Once you realize that, you don't fight as hard.
Yeah.
Most of the time, you're fighting using a piece of gear that's not designed to be used that way. And the thing about the UA, the Unison stuff, and all the UAD plugins is they're very accurate renditions down to everything. It's like if you had the box, right? So the gain stage is the same. It's not like it's because it's a plugin that you could destroy it with level. I mean, you can, again, if that's what you're looking for. But most of the time, I see people doing it, I'm like, no, I don't think that's what you want. You know, and you bring it down. You're like, "Oh, that sounds nice." I'm like, "Yeah, yeah, it does."
Yeah, it's that whole honesty thing, right? It's like when you switch it off, does it maybe sound better? Like you may have spent 30 minutes tweaking a setting, thinking that, oh man, this is getting better and better. It's just maybe it's just getting louder, or you're getting more and more lost in that sound. And then when you take it off,
very often it's getting louder.
It's often just getting louder. And then when you gain match and then you take it away, and you're like, was it really better, or was I thinking it was better in the moment? And you maybe go get a coffee, come back with a 5 minutes break, and all of a sudden you're like, you can be honest and be like, maybe that wasn't the move for this song in this situation.
Yep, yeah, I get that all the time. I'm working on an amazing record right now, a French record, and there's plugins everywhere. I'm talking 10 plugins per track, right?
Yeah.
And then you take one plugin off and the whole thing falls apart. You take it back on, you're like, ugh, I can't touch this. It's like this fragile piece of ball of twine. If I touch one thing, the whole thing is gonna go right? And then I don't know. The other day I was like, just so good, but it could sound better. So I just muted all the plugins. And I could hardly tell the difference between the raw sound and the 10 plugins on. Basically, they put a plugin on, and then they put a second plugin on to counteract what the first did, and then they did another one, and they tried to undo that. Instead of muting the plugins, they kept adding plugins. And so now you have 10 plugins, and then if you mute them all, you have the raw sound. And then it's just crazy. Yeah. So it's good to have a system like this, and the way the gain stage works in Luna, to be able to get to make really good sounding music and stay in control and not lose control of the ship, on the way to the harbor. It's nice. Very nice. Yeah. Do you have any questions from our dear audience?
There a couple of easy ones. A bunch of people are kind of wondering about the sample rate side of things. They're noticing, Fab, you've got it open up at 80 at 1. Someone in the chat was downloaded it and it opened up on their own. They're like, oh, it opened up at 40 for 1. This is actually one of the cool things that Luna is able to do. Is that sample rate, you can record at 88, you can mix at 44, you can kind of go back and forth between different sample rates, and Luna handles the conversion either in real time, or it'll happen in the background and then it starts using the cached files. But either way, it's always invisible to you guys as users, and allows you to optimize. In the moment, if you're capturing something, you can capture it at a higher rate, and then take it easy on your machine by playing back at a lower one. And then, of course, you can always set it back up to do your final bounce, which is really cool.
That is life-changing. So for me, what that has done is, here I have this obscene, Mac Pro thing, monster, with everything on it, right? And I run all my sessions at 88. And then if I'm on the road, I open the very same session on my laptop at 44, and it can play.
Yeah.
And it plays, and I do my editing, I do my whatever I do, and then I come back here, I reopen it at 88, and yes, it makes a difference in the sound when you print your session at 88 and when you print at 44. It does, especially if you captured a lot of it at 88. It's a beautiful system. It's the
absolutely.
only DAW that does that. It's crazy how useful that is.
I know,
I
right?
love it. Yeah, I love it.
A couple of people are asking about the gold faders. They're wondering if how you pimped out your mixer engine there.
I'm very special. I have gold faders. So no,
It's
the
a
gold
Fab
faders
special.
yeah, it's a limited edition. No, it's trim. So back in the day of analog hardware automation, it was a complicated process. Things are much easier now. Basically, you can think of it as an offset, right? So say I love my bongo moves, right? I love the way they are automated, but I want the whole bongo to be a little bit louder. I can turn the trim on, and then now my move is going to allow me to raise by the offset. So if my bongo was at 1 and I trim it by 1, now my bongo is going to be at 2. But all the moves are going to be kept. It's
Yeah.
like kind of like a general offset of the whole level. And because I did a lot of work I learned how to mix records in Pro Tools. And so the trimming in Pro Tools is kind of like the life of the party of automation. So it's kind of like an overall. But recently I've been looking into hardware automation. I just got somebody Vance just gave me an Uptown automation package, and I looked at how that works. It's really cool. Same thing. Trim. You do a pass and then you trim it.
Yeah.
It's really cool. So that's what the gold faders are. They're not more expensive.
They're included. They're included for free. Yeah, I was like they're included with
free
Luna.
gold faders.
Yeah, all you gotta do,
But
but you gotta earn them. You gotta do some automation first. You gotta go in and do some
Yes.
automation moves, and then you can earn your gold fader to make some adjustments.
Here's a trick. Here's a trick I use for the trim. Say you have no automation, right? And you're on a recall, and your artist says, "Hey," it gives you a list of notes. Like, I want more of this, less of that, more of this, less of that. There's a high potential of changes they're going to change their mind. Yeah? And so what I do is, instead of just changing the level, I use the trim. Because if I use the trim, whatever value is the trim is the last change I was requested to do. So if I look at my session and I see the vocal has a trim of plus 1.5, that means that I raised it by 1.5. And then the artist calls and says, could you please like halvesies that? Just go halfway. Then I know that I was at 1.5. I just go down 0.7.
Yep.
And that allows me to not have to keep track in my brain of how loud the vocals was on version 1.8 6 months ago when I sent it out. So the trims are also great to keep track of what your latest move is.
It's a good tip. Nice.
It works.
Well,
Saves lives.
guys, man, this has been we touched on so much stuff here in today's session. But of course, if you tuned in late, this session for Everyman, which is a song that Fab, Lewis, and Will, and here at UA, we brought in Oliver over at Spitfire. It's been a long saga putting the song together because we streamed every moment of its creation live. So there's a killer blog post available right now, uaudio.com/blog. It has the instructions for how to download the session, but then most importantly, it has the entire saga all embedded in one place, so you can binge watch all the shows and see through all the fun and the zooms and the team viewers and the bandwidth issue. Like it's warts and all sort of experience where you guys can really see how the song came together and came to life. And then you can download the session, open up inside of Luna, experiment with the moves that Fab was making, try out tools of your own, really kind of get in there. You can have some fun with it, save, you can go in and make a new version, wipe out all of the mix effects and try mixing it for yourself. There's such a good opportunity here to really explore the space a little bit, explore not just what Fab did, but explore what you can do with it as well. And I really hope you guys are enjoying not just the song itself, but also this opportunity to get in there and get it hands on. So to Fab, Lewis, and Will, you guys, from the bottom of my heart, I can't thank you guys enough for sharing your song, your talents, your wisdom. So much knowledge and inspiration has been shared over this whole series. It's remarkable what you guys have delivered to the folks out there.
Isn't the song coming out too? It's like
that was my question. That's the final question in here was going to be when's the song going to be on Spotify, iTunes, etc.
It's
soon.
yours.
And very soon.
There you go.
Nice.
Yeah. Maybe
Awesome.
maybe I'll just level it because I like the way it sounds. Maybe I'll just level it so that it's at minus 14 or something, because right now I think it's a little low, and then we'll just put it out exactly as is.
Happy camper.
That's awesome.
That works.
Awesome. Okay, Fab, any parting words before we sign off for the day?
Yeah, the song, the session you get has everything in it, including all the different takes of everything. It's a real live thing. So, treat it preciously. And
Also
I would
don't
say,
judge me.
The only
if
thing they're going
anyone
to judge,
could.
Lewis, is like you're the absolute beast at every instrument you touch.
Yeah, it's crazy, and you can see like the purity of just like the simplicity of the process is reflected in the session. And I think it would be very interesting if you actually made a raw session with none of the plugins and started from scratch before you explore what's already there, because I think that's a really interesting process. It's not the same. The whole show and tell thing is different than they actually going to the trenches and try to see what makes the music tick.
Totally.
Even if you keep the reverbs and you keep the bussing, so you have less setup to do, but you just start from scratch. And with the reverbs in it, everything is nice and neat and prepared and colored and beautiful. Then you can just like have fun with the music. It's pretty cool. It's nice. I would have loved to have a session like this when I was figuring out how to make records. That was
You and me both.
unobtainium. Yeah, I love it. This is great.
That's awesome.
Closest I had was Marvin Gaye stems.
Right?
Yeah.
Some bootleg stems.
They were already bootleg stems. They were already processed.
Processed. Yeah, I know. I know. Crazy.
Well, that's awesome. Well, Lewis, man, again, star of the show here, man. You're blowing us away with your talent, and it was really fun. We got to see you do this at NAMM live, and then to hang out with you here on Zooms for a couple of months, putting the song together. It just every instrument you pick up, every time a microphone's on, man, it's just always so cool to hear what you're able to get and get fast as well, which is really cool to see and inspiring for a lot of folks.
The speed is key. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Nice. And of course, Will, can't forget Will. Great job on with the writing on this, man. It was really cool to have you kind of join us at certain points along the way, but most importantly, like being a part of this conversation, because it's so often we get we can geek out about mixes and compressors and technical stuff nonstop. It's always refreshing to also think back to like, man, like at the end of the day, the thing that kind of matters, the thing that touches people is melody and lyrics. It is the song that really is what grabs a listener. So it's always great hanging out with you and kind of learning that side of the coin, as well as the technical geek audio stuff that we love to talk about all too often.
Yeah, pleasure, and it's nice for me as well to see the more audio geek side of it too. I mean, it's both sides are super important to making that final product, and I think that's what again was nice about this project, was to have the whole package. So thanks for the opportunity, and we're going to look back on this one in a year or two, and these videos are going to look so strange out of context of lockdown.
Totally. Yeah, if you're in the future and you're watching this and you made it to this point in this video, this series, thank you. And we hope you understand the world was different throughout this whole process.
So surreal. So surreal.
Well, and then most importantly, everybody at home, see in the chat here, man, so many familiar faces, so many familiar names. I know there's been a bunch of you that have watched this entire thing unfold live. So kudos to you guys for being there with us, for having great questions, and just always being a super supportive audience. The reason why we do this is for you guys to learn and to hang out and get inspired about making music. So pat yourselves on the back. You guys are awesome. As always, great questions and a great community of people around Luna. So I think with that, guys, this is end of an era right here.
Absolutely.
And it's been a really fun ride. Make sure you guys go download the session inside Luna, and we will be back with another show next Monday. We'll be back for office hours, and hope to see you guys all there soon. Till then, see you guys.
Ciao, everyone.